Yo, what's good everyone? This is Ayo Boxing with Madiba, and we're here to talk about the WBC preventing Dimitri Bivol from becoming undisputed. So news just broke that the WBC will refuse to sanction a potential undisputed fight between Artur Beterbiev, who is the unified WBC, WBO, IBF champion at light heavyweight, and Dimitri Bivol, the WBA champion. Mauricio Suleiman, the president of the WBC, stated, quote, "The WBC cannot sanction a fight with Bivol in it. That is because of our position with Russia. WBC would not accept that fight," end quote. And I think this is some bullshit coming from the WBC, and when you look at the facts of the situation, it really makes no sense. Both Bivol and Beterbiev are Russian fighters. However, Beterbiev has a Canadian citizenship, while Bivol is still a Russian national. But Bivol has never supported the war in Ukraine and has advocated for peace. Furthermore, Bivol has been living in California for years. Based on the history of the WBC and how fickle their rulings and standards can be, the WBC can easily make an exception for Bivol to allow an undisputed fight at light heavyweight. And that fight is one of the biggest and most important fights in boxing, and if it doesn't happen, it will hurt boxing. I understand from a geopolitical standpoint that Russia is very unpopular right now, especially among Western countries due to them invading the Ukraine. However, the WBC is not a geopolitical entity. It's a belt organization for a sport. In my opinion, they have no right to put sanctions on Russian fighters. It just seems like another superficial move from the WBC. Now, the real question I have regarding this news is, does the WBC have an ulterior motive behind their decision? In my opinion, I low-key think they do. I could be wrong, but let me explain my reasoning. Bivol has expressed a lot of interest in fighting Canelo at 168 instead of at light heavyweight in the rematch. If that were to happen, Canelo's undisputed belts would be on the line, and Bivol would most likely beat Canelo. Canelo losing in that way wouldn't be good for the WBC because Canelo is pretty much the poster boy for the WBC. He brings in a lot of money for the WBC through sanctioning fees and advertisements. Bivol does not have the same kind of influence as Canelo, which means he brings in less money. So the Russian sanctions deters a rematch at 168 because there's less incentive for Bivol, and even Canelo prefers to have the rematch at light heavyweight. The WBC has also mandated Beterbiev to defend his WBC title against Callum Smith. Beterbiev is signed to Top Rank, and Smith is signed to Matchroom, but Top Rank won the purse bid, so the fight will happen on ESPN. But if Callum Smith beats Beterbiev and becomes the new unified champion at light heavyweight, Matchroom and DAZN would have all the belts under their banner, therefore eliminating promoter politics in the division. This would allow for an easy, undisputed showdown between Smith and the winner of Bivol versus Canelo. And if that happens, I could see the WBC changing their Russian boxing sanctions because Smith is from the UK, a country that has a large boxing fan base, which means that's a lot of money for the WBC. And if Canelo ends up beating Bivol at light heavyweight in a rematch, then the undisputed fight between Canelo and Smith would be huge, because it will be a rematch. If you remember, Canelo already beat Callum Smith, and it's a fight between a British fighter and a Mexican fighter, and those fights are usually huge. This is all speculation though, so I could definitely be wrong. Maybe the WBC really cares and wants to uphold a moral obligation. They can do what they want at the end of the day because they're the most prestigious belt in boxing. But will they keep the same energy with different countries? I mean, America has been invading and bombing other countries for years, but the WBC doesn't seem to care. Or how about Saudi Arabia and their conflict with Yemen? There's a lot of shady shit that goes on in that conflict, but the WBC has no problem staging fights over there in Saudi Arabia. But who knows, this is boxing, anything can happen. But thank you for tuning in with Ayo Boxing with Madiba. Hit like, subscribe, and more content's coming your way.